Hello, this is the Finance 571 presentation for Daniel Austin and Jack Sloan, and our topic is accounting processes and issues regarding pension plans. Just to give you a quick agenda, we'll be discussing the hot topics in pension accounting today. We'll show you how accounting changes can ease the pension crisis that started in 2008. We'll give you some examples from Verizon, AT&T, and Honeywell and how they switched to the mark-to-market accounting methods. Then we'll show you how this relates to our class topics, and then finally give you a brief overview of what we discussed. So we're going to start by giving an overview of the hot topics in pension accounting today. One of the main issues being dealt with was in April of 2015, FASB issued an accounting standards update, which simplifies the measurement of defined benefit plans to place them closest to year-end of the fiscal year for companies. This is known as a practical expedient. So you can now record reconciling items in the footnotes rather than going back and fixing financial statements from prior periods. This reduces the cost and complexity of defined benefit plan fair value measurements by alleviating the rolling of fair value and actual estimates of assets and liabilities forward and back. Another topic in the news is the Department of Labor conducted an audit quality study this year. The focus was on protecting consumers from conflict of interest in retirement advice they receive, because the conflict of interest accounts for 1% of the annual losses for affected investors, which accounts for $17 billion annually. And the hope is that retirement advisors will be required to put the client's best interest before their own profits and expand the number of people subject to fiduciary best interest standards. Some other exemptions and updates were also put in place to protect 401k and IRA investors. On a related note, T. Rowe Price recently conducted a study as well. Some of the findings were that 45% of retirement plan participants have indicated that they determined their retirement saving needs by guessing alone. 64% of plan sponsors do not believe that their participants are saving adequately for retirement. The study also found that the top financial priorities for millennials include just getting by and paying off debt at 35% each, while the top priority for the baby boomer generation was saving for retirement at 44%. 70% of the participants also say that retirement planning could help them feel more comfortable about their finances in the future. Just some side notes on the study also showed that milestones in life, such as weddings or having children, promote an incentive for saving in the future for retirement. And the participants also showed a desire to personalize their information based on the life stage they are currently in.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about how these accounting changes that have occurred over the past few years can help ease the pension crisis. So it's pretty well documented that one of the largest government expenses is for payment of pension liabilities. It's estimated that state and local governments are sitting on over $1 trillion of unfunded pension liabilities, but some analysts estimate this number to be closer to $4 trillion, which accounts for more than a quarter of the United States GDP. This large range of unfunded liabilities is mostly due to use of different discount rates and return on assets when calculating the present value of the obligations. So these new accounting rules affect this aspect of it by changing the recognition, estimation, and disclosure of pension liabilities, with the hopes that they'll provide a clearer and more transparent picture regarding how the current liabilities of state and local governments are calculated and presented. Additionally, these new accounting standards will make the differences in various government obligations more easily to identify in their financial statements. This would ultimately bring a better approach to funding decisions as well as decisions to provide or alter defined benefits. Some additional points I wanted to make with regards to how these accounting changes can ease the pension crisis. First off, by imposing a higher level of consistency for the accounting of these pension liabilities, this allows people evaluating this process to look at funding issues in a more systematic way. Also, even though these accounting rules don't affect in particular how the pensions need to be funded, the hope is that they'll promote a more broadly shared focus of the issues at hand and the best way for them to be resolved. Ideally, these new rules of accounting for pension plans will impose a higher sense of urgency in the minds of those responsible for both funding and budgeting these governmental pension plans so that a future cash flow crisis can be avoided at all costs. So this chart that we have on this slide displays some of the historic and projected pension costs for state and local governments in the United States as well as the federal government. As you can see, the pension liabilities are greatly increasing over time. And on this slide we have a few different scenarios. The more greenish bar is the positive scenario based on higher returns. The blue bar is the expected scenario, and the red bar is more of a worst case scenario based on lower returns on assets. So as you can see, in all cases, the pension liabilities are greatly increasing over time, further backing up our point that this is a problem that needs to be looked at more and more.
So now I'm going to give you some key examples from Verizon, AT&T, and Honeywell. AT&T Inc., Honeywell International, and Verizon Communications all moved to the mark-to-market valuation method of their pension plans. This was an attempt to avoid reporting billions of dollars in losses due to the financial crisis of 2008. They revised their past financial statements as if these losses occurred in prior periods rather than the current one. There were $22 billion of losses for Verizon, $17 billion for AT&T, as well as $5.5 billion for Honeywell. This is a change from the common amortizing or smoothing out of pension plan losses and gains over several years that most companies are accustomed to. This is an attempt to dodge reporting losses in current and future periods without having any drag on net income. This new method also aligns pension plans with fair value accounting principles, as they recognize losses in the year that they occur. It's just a simpler method that's supported by both FASB and the IASB. And their hope is that this will help move towards a convergence of global accounting standards. And now to continue talking about how this new method aligns pension plans with fair value accounting principles, the method reflects pension plans' actual return on assets as well as changes in discount rates on liabilities and other actuarial assumptions. As an example, in 2008, AT&T revised its financial statements to show $25.4 billion in benefit costs for pension plans, rather than the initially recorded $500 million. This accounting change does not allow accumulated losses to affect future earnings and is also just a more rational way to project earnings in the future. An overarching goal of this new method is to provide clarity and transparency of operating performance. Recognizing losses in prior periods will avoid carrying losses forward and reducing corporate income, and this will also not affect pension plan funding requirements. All the companies agreed on this. And here you can see a political cartoon in which the artist believes that the mark-to-market method should have been incorporated in companies long ago, and that the FASB is far too slow in making it worldwide.
Alright, so here on this slide we just wanted to discuss a few points on how our topic relates to some of the topics discussed in class. First, we did a lot of discussion about defined benefits versus defined contribution plans, and these new accounting rules are basically aimed at easing the underfunded liabilities related to the defined benefit plans. We also talked a lot about ERISA and its impact on funding for these pension plans. Within the corporate sector, due to the funding requirements, this slightly eases the funding decisions. But in the governmental sector, since the government isn't subject to ERISA, these accounting changes were put into place with the hope that they would promote a mindset more similar to those funding plans in the corporate sector. Additionally, we have often discussed in class how our population is aging at a higher rate than ever before. With this being said, we believe this calls for an even greater importance in solving these issues at hand of the underfunded pension plans. So here on this slide, we just have kind of a brief summary of some of the points that we mentioned earlier in the presentation. So the pension accounting rules, regulations, and methods have been very pertinent to the different accounting standards boards as well as the Department of Labor, particularly after the financial crisis of 2008. And as we can see with the points mentioned previously, making these appropriate changes to pension accounting can greatly alleviate the pension crisis and the issues associated with it. And as Dan mentioned, the specific examples of AT&T, Verizon, and Honeywell's shift to market accounting show the direction that pension accounting is moving towards, and hopefully it will produce some positive changes. And finally, as we can see, there are many topics that we have learned in this class that directly relate to the issues of pension accounting. Here we have a list of our works cited for this presentation, and we want to thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed it.